General, fluid lines and fittings. What two general types of fluid lines are commonly used in aircraft plumbing? Metal tubing or flexible hose and fittings? How is metal tubing sized? By outside diameter in 1/16 of an inch increment and wall thickness. What material should be selected for high pressure rigid fluid lines? Annealed or 1/4 hard corrosion resistant steel? What type of material should fittings be made of when used with stainless steel tubing? Stainless steel fittings. What percentage of flattening is allowed when bending metal tubing? Do not exceed 75% of the original diameter. What precautions should be taken when routing fluid lines adjacent to electrical wiring? Keep 6 inches away from electrical wiring whenever possible. What is the purpose of the identification stripe running along the length of a flexible hose? The stripe is called, or the strip is called, a ley line and indicates the hose has twisted during installation. There is no allowable twist. What are some synthetic materials commonly used to manufacture flexible hoses? Buna-N, neoprene, butyl, ethylene, propylene, diene rubber, and Teflon. How are standard AN type and AC type fluid line fittings identified? By the color. What is the purpose of using quick disconnect coupling in fluid systems? They provide a means of quickly disconnecting a line without a loss of fluid or air entering the system. How is flexible hose sized? By the inside diameter, 1/16 of an inch increment. This one is very tricky because the high pressure rigid fluid lines, it's annealed 1/4 inch hard corrosion resistant steel. And for the metal tubing, it is 1/16 inch increment and wall thickness. The flexible hose is by 1/16 inch increments as well, but it's the inside diameter. How much slack must be left in a flexible hose during installation? 5 to 8% of the total length. Flexible hoses should be clamped at least every how many inches? 24 inches. Name considerations when installing flexible hose assemblies: slack, flexing, twisting, bending, clearance, and clamps. What pressure is used to proof test a flexible hose assembly? Typically 1.5 times the recommended operating pressure of the hose. What are the 3 parts of a military standard tube fitting? The body, sleeve, and the nut. What will be the result of over-tightening a flareless tube fitting? The compression sleeve's cutting edge will cut too deep into the tube and cause the tube to be weakened. What are 2 kinds of flares used in aircraft plumbing systems? A single flare, double flare. What is the difference between automotive and aviation flares? Aviation flares are 35 degrees, automotive are 45 degrees. What is the advantage of flexible Teflon hose over rubber hose? Teflon hoses have better resistance to chemicals and higher strength properties at higher temperatures. What precautions should be taken when deburring and inspecting the flared end of a tube? Care should be taken that the tubing is not cracked or that the wall thickness is not reduced by the deburring process. What type of rubber is used in flexible lines that carry phosphate ester hydraulic fluid? Synthetic. What type of information is on a hose ley line? Information found on a ley line will include the type of hose and a quarter and year of manufacture. What is the purpose of a sleeve on a flared tube connection? The nut fits over the sleeve when tightened, and when tightened, draws the sleeve and tubing flare tightly against the male fitting to form the seal. How is flared tubing affected by over-tightening of the fitting? The tube flare is likely to be damaged, forming a weak point which may fail when under pressure. What are the identification markings usually found on flexible rubber hose? Hose size, manufacturer, date of manufacturer, pressure and temperature limits. In addition to being securely clamped in place, how should metal, fuel, oil, and hydraulic lines be installed in an aircraft? They should be grounded to the structure or electrically grounded to the structure. When selecting a flexible hose for use in a phosphate ester-based hydraulic fluid system, the hose should be made of which synthetic rubber compound? Butyl. Scratches and nicks may be repaired if they are less than what percent of the wall thickness? 10%. What caution must be observed when deburring the end of tubing after cutting? Extreme care that the wall thickness is not fractured or reduced in size. What happens to a flareless tube fitting when it is over-tightened? The nut drives the cutting edge of the sleeve deeply into the tube, causing the tube to be weakened. What is the principal advantage of a flexible Teflon hose? High operating strength at elevated temperature. High operated strength at elevated temperature. What is the maximum interval for repeating the required markings on flexible hoses? No more than 9 inches along the lengths of the hose.